Hey everyone, welcome back to Attacking Third. NWSL Team Needs. We are hitting every single club ahead of the 2025 NWSL season. And today we are talking New Jersey, New York, Gotham FC. Gotham and Juan Carlos Amorós finished in third place at the end of the 2024 campaign with 39 points, 17 wins, 5 draws, 4 losses, and a goal difference of plus 21. They made it to the postseason, but ended up losing to the Washington Spirit in a penalty kick shootout, 3-0. Remember Aubrey Kingsbury standing on her head, making 3 saves? How could we forget? The end of the season for Gotham was fabulous. They won 9 of their last 11 matches with just 1 draw against Kansas City and 1 loss against Orlando Pride, the top 2 teams in the league. This offseason so far saw a lot of movement from Gotham. They signings, players that they brought in, forward Midge Purse, Brazilian forward Gabby Portillo, defender Mandy Freeman is sticking around, and forward Jessica Silva. They've also added in midfielder Jalen Howell, goalkeeper Shelby Hogan, forward Stella Atiemke from Ghana, and then 4 college players, Sarah Shupansky, Lily Reel, Kyla Harper, and goalkeeper Ryan Campbell. But they've lost so much in this offseason. Goalkeeper Michelle Bedos is now on the technical staff as an assistant goalkeeper coach. Crystal Dunn is gone to PSG. Yasmin Ryan, Delaney Sheehan, and Abby Smith have all gone to Houston. Maitani Lopez to Chicago. Sam Hyatt to Portland. Cassie Miller and Lynn Williams to Seattle. And McCall Zerboni and Svava Gudmundsdottir are both out of contract. So it is an interesting offseason for Gotham with so much change. But Sandra, when you think about 2024 Gotham and already the changes that they've made for 2025, is this what you needed to see? What went wrong last year and what needs to change for this year for Gotham?
I think you hate to narrow it down to just one specific thing, but they lost a penalty shootout in the semifinal. So much of what Gotham did last year was almost kind of like a slow burn, which is wild to think about because of the roster that they had last year. And I think what's important to note here is that a good chunk of that roster remains. Yes, there was a lot of overturn, and we saw players move on to different opportunities in new teams. But I like the acquisitions that they made. They saw a goalkeeper go to Seattle along with Lynn Biondolo and got Shelby Hogan. They made sure to get Mandy Freeman a new contract because of what she did over the course of the season, where she had to step up and show out. She did that. They went and they got Midge Purse on a 1-year deal. Maybe there was a lot of back and forth about what that contract could look like. What was Purse looking for in the offseason? Does that matter now? Because who knows? But what we know what it looks like now is that it's 1 more year with Gotham. And they acquired Gabby Portillo, who is a very exciting Brazilian international player. So yes, they lose some things, but not only did they retain a good chunk of their roster, they've got some exciting pieces to move forward in 2025. Everything around Gotham's roster right now doesn't indicate to me that they are going to miss out on the playoffs in 2025. And for me, that doesn't look like or sound like a team that needs to put out feelers or try to get in front of a narrative or anything like that. You had an off season where players left. Does that suck? Yes. Sometimes you got to take the L that comes with it and just ball, man. Just ball and let the ball do the talking. And at this point, I think in Gotham's existence, they have become part of that top of the table storyline. They become a part of that elite team narrative, that they have found themselves as a bit of a staple within those conversations. It doesn't happen for every team, but for Gotham, it has in kind of this short window of time. It wasn't too long ago where this was a team that just went through a rebrand and they were struggling to attract players to their club. That's not the case for this team anymore. So when I look at this preseason roster, when I look at the players that are available to them and the season to come, they're fine.
Receipts.
I like it.
Let's go. February 13th.
I like it.
Sandra says they're making the postseason. Dee, what say you?
Sandra's dropping facts. I mean, I don't disagree with anything that she said. My biggest issue I had with Gotham last year is I think that they lost so much of the heart of that grittiness that Gotham had the year before. And I think that a lot of players looked unhappy. It looked like the culture had changed a little bit. Whatever. That happens. That happens to every sports team that's ever existed. My question now is, how do you build that chemistry again? How are you slotting people in? How are you making this that blue collar team with now this different technical game plan that Gotham's developed the last 3 years with Coach Juan Carlos there, that's bringing the best out of your players? I don't think we saw that last year. I think a couple of players kind of thrived in that environment. Most of them did not. Now you have less of these, star-studded names. You have a little bit more room in your roster. You have a lot of room to kind of change and elevate these players who are coming in, these younger players maybe haven't had a lot of minutes, who have to slot into Juan Carlos' style of play. Let's see them build on that. The biggest issue that they had last year that I need to see this year, that's their big need, is just team chemistry. Let's see how you do it. Midge Purse is back leading that front line. I think that's going to change a lot of things for them. She adds so much to their attack. And let's see them build around it. The only question I have maybe in their entire setup is the midfield. I think they lost a lot of people.
Yeah, that's
a lot of players, especially Yasmin Ryan, who could play anywhere on the front line in the midfield. You have Delaney Sheehan, who is a constant. Who else is going to fill in there? Rose is kind of in and out. Neely Martin's all reliable. She's going to be there.
Yeah.
Who else can you bring up that's going to fit into those positions and still make them a really fearful team in that midfield? Because that was probably their strongest suit last year.
Yeah.
I think I agree with you there. I think that's my one big question with their midfield is especially defensive. Are they going to play Jalen with Neely? If Rose isn't 100%, and like knock on wood she is, but let's say she's not, who's the heir apparent? Who's going to be that creative point in the midfield? I think they're a little bit thin there, and relying on some of these rookies essentially. I don't know. I have a lot of questions. Yes, I think that it's possible, but I just think I was looking the other night at just comparing the rosters from last season to this season. The average age last season was like 28 and a half, and they've dropped a lot of those vets from this roster. And, you've dropped that average age down to about 25. I think that's a lot of questions being asked of some very fresh legs. I think I'm also obligated probably to give Darian a go Bruins in here, because they did pick up quite a few UCLA players, but to have them not really battle tested in NWSL and that acclimation point, I don't know.
Needless to say, the team that we see from Gotham in 2025 is going to be very different than what we saw in 2024. I don't think it's positive or negative by any means. We have to wait till we see what happens on the pitch. There is going to be a lot of change, though. And because of all this change, the general manager of New Jersey, New York, Gotham FC, Yael Averbuch-West, wrote an open letter to the fans that dropped February 3rd from within Gotham. And the main gist of this letter essentially was that West talked about how she was aware of the outside narratives surrounding all of the roster moves, saying, quote, "Our goal was never to form a super club. Instead, they wanted Gotham to be a perennial title contender." Now, super team is referring to the offseason acquisitions they made last offseason ahead of the 2024 season, bringing in all of these U.S. women's national team players in Rose Lavelle, Tierna Davidson, Emily Sonnet, Crystal Dunn. But now this letter simply addresses the fact that so many changes have also been made this season. And in the letter, Yael Averbuch-West says, quote, "We recognize not every player's journey will align perfectly with our club's path. Some will thrive and grow with us for years, while others may desire to move on to other opportunities. Sometimes we'll decide to move in a different direction too. This is the nature of professional sports." This is so interesting, Sandra. I've never once read a letter from a GM addressing what the media or fans are saying about a club and the outside narratives, as Averbuch-West puts it.
Unnecessary, man. I saw that and I was like, why? Like, why? And I think you and I chatted a bit about this off mic, and I asked for that example. I was like, can someone point me to, letters and even men's professional sports, just to widen that search to see what this is, to tap into some of that energy. And I it's funny because I didn't have to look farther than my backyard because the White Sox owner wrote a letter to fans last offseason. But you know why he wrote an open letter to fans? Because that team was miserable and they lost a historic they lost the most games ever in Major League Baseball history, a league that's like 500 years old. You better do something. And let me tell you what my other reaction to that was. I didn't care. No, you're a fan reading that letter. I was like, do something about it. It was literally sorry that happened to you. I'm not reading all that energy. And I just think it seems unnecessary. I understand the clubs and wanting to get in front of storylines and narratives and things like that. But this is also, she alludes to this. Yeah, Oliver Bush-West alludes to this in the letter that this is professional sports. And I think when it comes to women's pro sports, there's a lot of growing and evolving that's taking place. And I think that includes maybe even some of the fandom within it. That this is actually quite a normal thing that happened. They didn't want to build a super team. Okay, well, I'm sorry. Maybe you next time don't sign 4 bona fide U.S. women's national team starters, and people won't think that. But that's going to happen. That comes with all of those moves. So there are off seasons where you're going to ride a lot of highs. There are off seasons where you're going to ride a lot of lows. And maybe this was an off season where you just got to take the L and move forward. And that's what I'm alluding to when I meant earlier that you just got to let the game speak for itself, let the results speak for themselves in the year in front of you. And it made me think about, the fact we had Jordan Angeli on this show not too long ago to talk about Denver NWSL. And I said that these types of moments are so big because we see former players behind so many of these moves. And it is going to be the former players who find themselves kind of helping to shape this next era of NWSL. And that includes whether it's in bringing teams to new markets or former players finding themselves in executive roles. And I think when it comes to that, you could take the former out of the former player, but you can't take the player out of the former player. And even when you find yourself as a former player in these executive roles, you still have a little bit of like bite to you. You still have a little bit of like, hold on a second, this is my team. I got to step up for it. So in that sense, I deeply respect it. It's you're the GM, write as many letters as you want, but I don't think it was something that was necessary. Mm-hmm. And I hope that for Gotham's sake, the off season that they get to just put that behind them and just ball out.
Oh, Sandra, you're on one today, dropping facts. I agree, and I think when I saw that was posted by Gotham, I think especially in women's sports and NWSL particularly, there's this expectation that there always should be an answer. That, hey, we need the clue and the audience needs the clue and as to what's going on. You don't. Sometimes not saying anything is a perfect answer. It's sports. You move on. Everybody's okay. Everybody's playing on other teams. This is just the way that it goes sometimes. And we live and we learn. You move on. Everybody's thinking Gotham, shout out to Sandra, everyone's thinking Gotham is going to go potentially make it to the playoffs again, potentially win another championship this year. Whatever. Yeah, I didn't think it was necessary. In fact, that made me think, oh God, seems a little deeper than
exactly
maybe we all originally thought. I think it added a little bit, stoked the fire a little bit. But it
don't
just
make it weird.
I think no or a non-answer is a perfect. You don't have to give an excuse. We don't have to be privy to it. So I think if this happens again, don't say anything. We don't need it. We can all move on. Everyone will forget about it and focus on the home opener. That's all that we're really going to talk about.
Exactly. This letter says more than not saying anything would have. This said, we are very privy to what everyone is talking about us. We feel almost self-conscious about what the media, what our fans are saying about us. And hey, believe me, guys, we're figuring it out back here. Don't worry. We're going to be here and we're going to do great. Just don't say anything. It's sports.
Whomever presumably approved that from PR, they need to hire another PR person.
Oh.
Ooh.
I'm sorry. That's reality. Like somebody needs to be able to pull the plug and be like, no, hands off the keyboard.
We'll see if any other news drops out of Gotham. Of course, guys, we'll keep you updated. That's what we do here. We ran a poll on YouTube. If Gotham was going to make the postseason, 56% of you say, yeah, they're going to make the playoffs. 28 say it's going to be a deep run in the playoffs. And only 6% say that they'll actually win after they make the playoffs, 11% saying, hey, they're not even getting to the postseason. 2025 season is around the corner. Gotham kicks off all the action in opening weekend. We'll preview it all as we get closer.